A lot of people wonder just how fast can you lose weight? Well, there's a lot of things that go into that equation concerning how fast you can lose weight, and it can be a little complicated. It's not quite as easy as not quite as easy as it seems, as anyone who's dieted know. But let's tackle that question today. How fast can you lose weight or body fat when you're dieting? Well, it's no secret. The basic formula for losing weight is to consume fewer calories than you burn through physical activity. A lot of diets will claim that, if you follow this diet, you can eat as much as you want, and you don't have to worry about calories. And then they have this thing about the macro thing, where you don't count calories, you just count carbohydrates and fats, and in the end your body will kind of figure out on its own the right amount of calories. These are all interesting. They're more like fad things, but the truth is that you can't get away from the physical principle of the fact that you have to take in fewer calories than you burn to lose body fat. There's no way around it. Now, calorie expenditure itself is composed of three major components. One is the resting metabolic rate. This is the number of calories your body needs just to keep you alive, to maintain normal body functions, breathing, heart rate, pumping blood. You're resting. That's the minimal amount of calories you burn at rest. That's the resting metabolic rate. Then you have the thermic effect of food, or TEF. This refers to the calories used to digest and absorb and metabolize food. Protein provides the greatest thermic effect of food. It's something like, I can't remember offhand, maybe 30%, I can't remember, of calories are utilized in just digesting and absorbing protein. This is one of the reasons why on any diet it's always good to ingest a higher protein intake. I'll talk more about that in a minute. The final component of caloric expenditure is called the thermic effect of activity. This, of course, is the amount of calories you burn moving around, exercising. Thermic effect can also include something called non-exercise activity, thermogenesis, or NEAT. That accounts for the calories. Minor, like, let's say, you ever see these people that fidget a lot? They're always moving. They're always moving their hands. They're always moving their feet. That's basically, they're burning calories, and that's called non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And in the long run, over the course of a day, it can actually account for quite a few calories, and it also explains why people who fidget a lot very often are lean. It's harder for them to get fat because they're always burning more calories because of the NEAT effect. Now, there's factors that affect weight loss include your gender, in other words, male or female. For example, women have a greater fat muscle ratio. They carry more body fat than men because of estrogen, and they have a 5 to 10% lower resting metabolic rate than men of the same height, which means that women generally burn about 5 to 10% fewer calories than men at rest. So when men go on a diet, they'll lose, let's say a man and a woman goes on the exact same diets, the man will lose weight faster than the woman. For example, an 8-week study which had over 2,000 participants, they consumed an 800-calorie diet. That's way too low calories, by the way. That's a starvation diet. But anyway, the men in the diet who went on the diet lost 16% more weight than the women. That was published in a journal called Diabetes, Obesity, and Metabolism just recently in 2018. Your age also your age also affects your rate of weight loss. For example, everyone knows that, and I know this, I can verify this, the older you are, the harder, or not the harder, but I will say the harder. The older you are, the harder it is to lose body fat, and the slower the rate. This has to do with a loss of a lot of it has to do with loss of muscle mass, which is one of the things that affect resting metabolic rate. But in other words, generally speaking, a lot of people, as you get older, your fat mass increases while your muscle mass decreases, and this, and your organs also require less calories, and this the whole picture adds up to a lower resting metabolic rate, which explains why it's harder to lose weight when you get older. Adults over 70 years of age can have a resting metabolic rate that's 20 to 25% lower than those of younger adults. This decrease in resting metabolic rate can make weight loss increasingly difficult with age. I mean, it's not your imagination. There are other factors, for example, hormones like testosterone, thyroid, of course, controls located right here in the neck. It controls the resting metabolic rate. If there's anything wrong with your thyroid, a lot of women, for example, when they get older, they get something called Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which involves producing antibodies to their own thyroid hormone. Their thyroid produces the normal amount of hormones, but what happens is antibodies destroy it in the bloodstream before the thyroid hormone can interact with cellular receptors. That, of course, women who have that condition, when they go on diets, will find it exceedingly hard to lose body fat. And then you have the testosterone situation. As the testosterone drops, there's a tendency to put on body fat, because one of the things that testosterone does is it takes what they call pluripotent stem cells, which can be turned into either fat cells or muscle. It kind of directs these cells into the muscle pathway. And as you get older and your testosterone drops, these stem cells will head for the fat pathway, which explains why men who are low in testosterone, they often find themselves accumulating fat, particularly fat around the gut area or the abdominal area. That has to do with a shutdown of beta adrenic receptors, which which are work with catecholamines such as norepinephrine and epinephrine to release fat from fat cells. The good news is that if you get your testosterone up to normal levels, all these changes related to body fat disappear. I've seen guys go on testosterone replacement therapy, and they made no changes in diet, no changes in exercise, and yet they lost several inches on their waist doing nothing, only because they normalized their, let's say, fat metabolism because of the lack of testosterone. Another factor that affects the rate of weight loss during dieting is how heavy you are at the start. The heavier you are, the faster you will lose body fat, in other words, compared to people lighter. But the percentage of weight loss is about the same. For example, a person weighing 300 pounds may lose 10 pounds after reducing their daily intake of calories by 500 for 2 weeks. Someone of the same age and sex weighing 150 pounds may lose only 5 pounds following the same method. Although the heavier person lost double the amount of weight, both individuals lost an equal percentage of their body weight. Now, there's no getting around, like I said earlier, there's no getting around the fact that to lose weight requires a daily reduction in total caloric intake, and the fewer calories you ingest, the faster your weight loss will be. However, the studies of bodybuilders and athletes have shown that the faster the weight loss, this is important, the faster the weight loss, the greater the percentage of lean mass or muscle loss. And get this, studies have shown that even if you take anabolic drugs like anabolic steroid growth hormone, if the calories are too low, you're still going to lose muscle mass. That's an important point. As such, the optimal rate of weight loss for anyone who wants to retain as much muscle mass as possible is about 1.5 pounds per week, or about 1% of body weight. In other words, the faster you lose weight, the greater the loss of muscle. Ingesting too few calories also places you at risk for various nutrient deficiencies, especially if you don't use any food supplements. This is the advantage of food supplements. When you're, for example, not eating enough food to get all your daily requirements of essential nutrients, you can take some vitamins, minerals, or whatever to make up for it. To say that these supplements are junk is absolutely insane, because sometimes you really need it, and one time, and such time could be under dieting conditions. Now, you also protein supplements could be useful during diet, because protein intake has to be increased while you're dieting as a means of helping to retain lean mass. As such, intakes of protein up to 3 grams per kilogram per body weight or more. You can take up to 5 grams per kilogram and not have any kidney or bone problem. That's all BS. It just doesn't happen in active people. Anyway, a high protein intake would be advantageous during dieting, and the protein will also increase satiety, which makes it easy to stay in the diet. In other words, the more protein you eat, the more full you feel, and the less desire you will have to break your diet and go on a binge or something like that. Not consuming enough protein is a major mistake of many diets, and almost guarantees the regain of, or recidivism, the regain of lost body fat. Other possible side effects of dieting, especially dieting with too few calories, include headaches, irritability, constipation, usually from lack of fiber, and hair loss. Now, an overlooked factor in weight loss that a lot of people overlook is the need for sleep. I've talked about this in prior videos, how important sleep is. And in an upcoming issue of my Applied Metabolics newsletter, I'm going to have some brand new information on how sleep affects body fat, muscle gains, and anything else that's related to anybody involved in physical fitness or bodybuilding and such, and also general health. There's some interesting new information on how sleep affects the cardiovascular system. This will all be included in my upcoming article about sleep in applied metabolics. But a lack of sleep tends to promote fat gains and blunt fat losses. One reason for this is an imbalance between two proteins that help to control appetite. One is called ghrelin. Ghrelin is a gut hormone. Ghrelin is produced in between meals. It's the most appetite-stimulating hormone produced in the body. And the other one's called leptin. Leptin is produced from fat cells. It's called an adipokine. It tends to decrease appetite. So unfortunately, when you don't get enough sleep, levels of ghrelin go up, levels of leptin go down. What this means is you're going to have a hell of a time staying on a diet because you're going to be voraciously hungry. In fact, just one night of lack of sleep has been shown to increase your desire for high-calorie, nutrient-poor foods, cookies, cakes, sugary beverages, chips, junk food. This is what happens when you don't get enough sleep. One 2-week study randomized participants on a calorie-restricted diet to sleep either 5.5 or 8.5 hours each night. Those who slept 5.5 hours lost 55% less body fat and 60% more lean mass compared to those who slept 8.5 hours a night. That's how potent sleep is. Chronic sleep deprivation is also strongly linked to the onset of type 2 diabetes, obesity, heart disease, and even certain cancers because your immune response goes down when you don't get enough sleep. Don't overlook sleep. If you're not getting enough sleep when you're dieting, you might as well be eating pizza pie. You're ruining your dieting efforts. There's other factors that affect the rate of fat loss, and that including certain medications you're taking. For example, antidepressant drugs are known to stimulate appetite. In some people, they can make you really hungry, making it hard to diet. Antipsychotic drugs. A lot of you people today, are probably on antipsychotics because you're crazy. I understand that. I'm not going to get into that. There's just a side note. In all the years I've been on this earth, I've never seen so many insane people. But that's another story. I don't want to get into it. But let me put it this way: antipsychotics will make you really hungry, and they can promote weight gain or even block weight loss. Certain medical conditions, having depression because of the drugs you have to take. Of course, hypothyroidism. If your thyroid is not working properly, as I mentioned earlier, 50% of women over 40 tend to get low thyroid problems. It can happen in men too. If your thyroid isn't working at optimal function, you're going to have a lower resting metabolic rate. It's going to be hard to stay on a diet because you're going to be losing weight at a crawl. It's going to really mess it up. If your thyroid is messed up, you should be taking some thyroid medication. I've talked about that in applied metabolics also. Even family history and genes. There was a famous researcher years ago named Gene Mayer. I believe he founded the Tufts University. Tufts University School of Nutrition. And he made a statement once. He said if you had one fat parent, your chances of being fat are 40%. If you have two fat parents, your chances of being fat are 80%. His statement has been challenged over the years. For one thing, they have the science. When he made that statement many, many years, over 50 years ago, the science of epigenetics didn't exist. In other words, science believed that your genetic fate determined your fate, basically. Now we know there's something called epigenetics, which involves kind of altering genes through, let's say, exercise, nutrition. There's various ways where, let's say you have the genetics, you have two fat parents. In other words, it doesn't mean that you are going to be fat. In the past, they thought it always meant that you're going to be fat. Now we know that you can alter it by exercise, diet, taking certain supplements. I talk about this again in my Applied Metabolics newsletter. It's beyond the scope of the video to talk about all these epigenetic factors. However, they do exist. The thing to know is that your fate concerning how much body fat you're going to carry is not absolutely determined. You do have some control over that. However, if you don't do anything about it and you come from a fat family, the tendency is you will probably be fat. If you don't exercise, you don't diet, that kind of thing. So there's another thing called yo-yo dieting. Bodybuilders engage in this a lot by their habits of bulking up in the off season, putting on a lot of weight, and then leaning down, dieting before a contest. They gain weight, they lose weight, they gain weight, they lose weight. This is called yo-yo dieting. Unfortunately, if you keep doing this year after year, it can adversely affect your resting metabolic rate, making it hard from a bodybuilding point of view. If you keep doing this, your resting metabolic rate will gradually decline, and you'll find it harder and harder to take the fat off. I personally witnessed several bodybuilders over the years who did this constant bulking up and leaning down, and after a while, it was harder and harder for them to get ripped for a contest. It happens, but the thing about it is that the key to remember about it, there's nothing wrong with gaining weight when you don't have a contest coming up. In fact, it's a good idea, because trying to maintain a very low body fat year-round is very, very unhealthy, very bad for your nervous system, very bad for your body. You should put on a little bit of weight. The key is don't let yourself get fat. No obesity. Don't eat everything in sight and put a bunch of fat on, because you're going to have to diet it down. That's when you start to adversely affect the metabolism. When you put too much fat on, that requires a lot of stringent diet to reduce the fat. You're going to mess up your resting metabolism in the long run. Now, obvious question here: what's the single best diet for losing body fat? Okay, I'm going to have to be a little killjoy and tell you that there is no one best diet. You know what their one best diet is? And everybody who knows anything about nutrition agrees with this. The best diet is the diet that you could stick to, no matter what it is, the diet that you can stick to. Don't go on a diet that you're going to go off in a week or two because you can't stand it. That's what happened with me. Years ago, I tried a high carbohydrate, low fat diet. I was starving. After about 8 days, I couldn't stick to it. I went off. I experimented with just about every diet known to man. I found that the only diet that ever worked for me, again, for me, was low carbohydrate diets. I've talked about this in my newsletter. However, low carbohydrate might not be good for you. The people that low carbohydrate diets work best for usually have insulin problems. In other words, they tend to have higher resting insulin levels. They respond much better to low carbohydrate diets. By the way, that includes about 50 to 75% of the population. And if you said to me, which type of diet do you lose weight the most rapidly on? Again, all the studies point to low carbohydrate diets. Many studies say that after about 6 months to a year, it makes no difference what type of diet you're on. The rate loss becomes the same. However, if you check the nuances of these studies, which I have, you find that the people who start on low carbohydrate diets, after about 6 months, they're not on low carbohydrate diets anymore. I mean, they're taking in 50, 60% carbohydrates. That's not low carbohydrate diet. Of course, they're going to show the same amount of weight loss as somebody on eating a similar amount of carbohydrates. What do you expect? They're eating the same amount of carbohydrates. It's ridiculous. And anyway, that was just a little bit of a rave there. Also, one thing also very important. This should be obvious. You have to exercise if you really want a good rate of weight loss. There's no ways around it. You got to do weight training. You got to do aerobics, because the weight training and aerobics both promote a higher metabolic rate. Recent studies show that high intensity interval training promotes the highest resting metabolic rate of any type of exercise. However, weight training, because it promotes lean mass retention and gain, also maintains a higher resting metabolic rate. To go on a diet and not exercise, I've seen a lot of articles lately on the web and elsewhere saying, oh, exercise doesn't help you, it's a waste of time, it doesn't help you lose fat. That's a stupid statement, because if you diet and you don't exercise, you are going to lose lean mass, and your resting metabolic rate's going to come down, which means that as soon as you go off the diet, all the weight and fat's going to come right back. That's why dieting shows a 95 to 97% recidivism rate. What does that mean? People who go on diet, within a year, they gain all the fat back. A successful diet equals holding the weight or keeping your body fat down for at least 5 years. Most people never make it past a year. So this notion about exercise is not important when you're dieting is garbage. Walk away from anyone who says that. That's absolutely absurd, stupid. I don't care how many PhDs they have. By the way, one easy way, if you don't want to go on any stringent diets, you can do what Arnold did. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Arnold, when he competed in bodybuilding contests, he didn't go on low carbohydrate. He reduced his carbohydrate. He did reduce his carbohydrate, but he didn't go on low carb diets. All he did is reduce the amount of food he ate. In other words, he just lowered his calories, ate the same foods, and you saw what he looked like at a contest. He got in great shape. You can emulate that simply by cutting out all processed food, especially processed carbohydrates, high fructose corn syrup, all that junk. Instead, you want to consume healthy foods that are rich in nutrients, fruits, vegetables, healthy fat sources such as fatty fish containing omega-3 fatty acids, extra virgin olive oil is an excellent source of fat, high quality, and of course high quality proteins as found in lean meat, fish, eggs, and poultry. And if you're a vegan, you can also get enough protein simply by eating. You have to eat more food to get the amount of protein you need when you're dieting. Or, of course, an easy way to do it is just to supplement the vegan diet, with a vegan-based protein supplement. There's a lot of them now, pea, hemp, so on and so forth. Finally, keep in mind the last thing I'll tell you about this is that, dieting is not linear. In other words, it's up and down. There's times you'll lose weight faster than other times. And it's very common to hit dieting plateaus where after about 3 or 4 weeks, suddenly the weight loss slows down to a crawl. That usually involves a lowering of metabolism. Your body is sensing that you're taking in fewer calories. It adjusts the thyroid output, starts to produce something called reverse T3, which lowers your resting metabolism. There's ways around this. You could just increase your exercise. You can increase, or you can adjust your calories. You will start losing weight again. Don't let the dieting plateaus discourage you. Just do what you have to do because you will continue to lose weight. And I should also point out that the lower your calorie intake, the quicker you're going to hit a dieting plateau. If you lower your calories too much, you'll hit a dieting plateau in about 3 weeks. If you follow the advice I said earlier, which is to aim for a weight loss of only about 1.5 pounds a week, the odds of hitting a dieting plateau are much, much less. Again, the fewer calories you take in, the greater the chance of a dieting plateau. Okay, that's about it for this subject. If you want more information on nutrition, exercise science, supplements, the ones that really work, fat loss techniques that really work, anti-aging research, information that you can use today to slow the aging process. I'm going to have an article very soon in my Applied Metabolics newsletter about how to slow the aging of the skin, all the factors that can make you look younger as you get older. A lot of women are interested, but men should be too. You don't want to look like an old fart walking around. Let's face it. I'm trying not to look like an old fart myself, but maybe I do. What can I do? But anyway, and then I have exercise science, women's health. All these topics are covered in extreme detail in my Applied Metabolics newsletter. I call it a newsletter. It's more like a monthly ebook. It's 40 to 50 pages every month. If you subscribe, I'll send you an invitation to join my private Applied Metabolics Facebook page, where every day I post new information on exercise, nutrition, science, medicine, and health every single day. That's only for subscribers to Applied Metabolics. I also have an email portal on the Applied Metabolics website. I'll answer short questions from subscribers only. I don't answer non-solicited questions. However, you're welcome to leave comments under these videos. Try and leave nice comments. Trolls, please go somewhere else. I'm not going to respond to you. I don't respond to trolls. I don't respond to idiotic comments. So if you leave it, I'm not going to answer them. It's that simple. But, others, if you want to leave suggestion for video topics for me to discuss, feel free. And that's about it. If you want to have the best friend, Bruno's around here somewhere. He doesn't need weight loss. Bruno's 14 pounds, solid muscle. He's an old dog, but he's in shape. Anyway, if you want to have the best friend you ever have, go to your local shelter, adopt a dog. They are the best friends you can ever have. Take care. Thanks for listening.